my name is Nicholas Montez, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Nicholas Montez. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everybody. I'm so excited to have y'all back here together again. And in today's video, we're going to be discussing the newest MCU film that came out in theaters this past weekend, Thor, Love and Thunder. But before we start reviewing the movie, I think it's very clear to talk about what were my expectations going into the film before seeing it. So let's go ahead and do that first. So I think the first thing going into this film, of why I was really excited for it, is, I guess the first thing is Taika Waititi. Because if you guys know, I've been seeing Taika Waititi's films for the last couple weeks with Jojo Rabbit, Boy, Hunt for the Wilder People. I've seen all those movies, besides a couple of his other movies. And then, of course, you know, I was a huge fan of Thor Ragnarok. And besides his other films, which I did enjoy, Thor Ragnarok is the pinnacle of Taika Waititi films, where because, you know, the first Thor film is kind of bland and the story was not very good, though the cast that they did for the film was good. Thor the Dark World is considered to be one of the worst MCU movies. I didn't really like that film as much. I liked that at first, but I didn't like it. I don't like it now. But then Taika Waititi came in, and he brought in a very cool color scheme, brought in a cool soundtrack, and basically just made the Thor franchise fun, where while all this dangerous and bad stuff is happening in Asgard, you can have fun with it. And I love the way they did that, as well as like bringing in the comedy aspect of it into the film. So that was my favorite part about what Thor Ragnarok did. I think the other thing is just seeing what Thor is going through after the events of Endgame. After finally, you know, trying to find out who he really is and stuff like that. After dealing with what he has to do with Endgame, like, you know, having him team up with the Guardians of the Galaxy, seeing him become the buffest version he's ever been, and just going on more Thor adventures was just great. It's just something I was really excited for. But then also, you get the return of Valkyrie and Korg, which of course those are characters from Thor Ragnarok that I absolutely enjoyed very much. And then of course, you know, with Thor and the Guardians, of course I enjoyed the stuff that Thor and Rocket had in Infinity War and Endgame. Even the stuff with the interactions between Star-Lord and Thor, I of course enjoyed. So we had to get more of that. And then of course I think the last two things you gotta talk about here, or at least the last three things, for the Zeus stuff, like introducing more gods, like when they announced that Russell Crowe was going to be part of the cast of Thor: Love and Thunder, and then I was like, this seems more like part of the cast of like that show that they put on for the Thor stories, but he's actually Zeus, like the actual Zeus, the father of Hercules. And when I was thinking about that, like, oh, like I didn't really think they would introduce Hercules in this film. But we'll talk about that in just a little bit. And then of course I think the next thing, adding Christian Bale, who played Batman in the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy, is coming in to play Gore the God Butcher. I thought that was really cool. The look looks amazing, and the specific idea behind it was really cool. And I think the last thing to talk about why I was so excited for this film is because Jane Foster's coming back, and she's playing Lady Thor, or as they call her in the movie, Mighty Thor. And I know a lot of people are kind of frustrated. I heard a lot of people say that they weren't excited for it because if you can't turn everyone into a superhero. Like, certain characters work for it, but not everyone. But this character, I think, worked for it specifically because it's the comic book origin. It's how the comic book is. And technically, her character's a what-if concept, and now she's a main character. So, yeah. But with all that said, I loved everything that they were doing. I loved all the trailers. I loved everything that they were promoting for this movie. I loved everything they announced. My only problem with it, and that's really the problem with all of the MCU projects, is I don't know what the story is. They're not being clear with the stories on this one, especially when it comes to the villains and really the whole story of the movie. You're just going to stop a villain and that's it. Like, that's not the best plot. But I have finally seen it, and here are my thoughts on Thor: Love and Thunder. I think the first thing you gotta talk about when it comes to this movie is, first off, the comedy. To be clear, if you loved the comedy from Thor Ragnarok, there's parts of it you're gonna love, but then there's parts of it you're gonna be very annoyed by, because the comedy gets very stupid at times. But for the comedy bits that they had in this film, I actually thought were pretty funny. Whenever Korg is telling the story, especially when he tells the story of, Thor's past and all the deaths he had to experience with the Warriors 3, Loki, his mom, his dad, Heimdall, all that was pretty funny. Even the little jokes that all the other characters make. Honestly, I don't remember specific jokes that I remember liking the humor a good bit, but was there a joke that I remember laughing out loud to? Not exactly as much. No. I just remember the humor was good, though. I guess it's just because I have a lot to say for the humor, but yeah. I guess the next thing you gotta talk about with this film is really just kind of the color palette, the colors in the film. Like when all the people are going to the Shadow Realm. Like me and my mom we watched it together at the theater, and we were talking about it driving home, and she was like slowly saying that it felt like we were watching, like it literally just came out of a comic book. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. It literally just came out of a comic book. Like whenever Thor shoots his lightning, it's like you can see the colors of his cape, of how red it is. It's like, it looks so cool. Like sometimes they're black and white, and then sometimes they're in color. It's like, it's all cool. And I would say that's probably the standout action sequence of the entire film. I guess you could say also the third act as well. But the third act was weird. Next thing you gotta talk about with this film is, of course, Chris Hemsworth as Thor. Of course, he's always good in the role. It's not that he's ever, bad or anything. There are parts of it that I don't like of him, as they kind of do, they do kind of do some weird stuff with him, but we'll talk about that when we get onto the bad. Of course, seeing Valkyrie, seeing Korg again were great. I liked seeing them. Of course, Taika Waititi does great as Korg. Tessa Thompson does great as Valkyrie, so I thought that was great. Then let's talk about Jane Foster as the Mighty Thor, and I thought that her character was really cool. And honestly, to all the comic book fans out there that have read the comics and stuff, y'all know that she was going to probably be doing the cancer plotline, where the reason why she gains the powers of Thor is because she could get some health from being Thor. And that sounds like a cool plotline. The setup of it is not the best, so we'll talk about when we get into the bad. But I thought when she was in the suit and she had the hammer and she was destroying, Gore's guys, and even destroying Gore himself was awesome. But I thought that everything they did with her was actually really good, and I would say that this is definitely the better Jane that we've ever seen. Though it's kind of weird that you made her a superhero, and she's only good when she is a superhero. Though at the same time, I still thought she was really good in the film, and the interaction she had with Thor was pretty good. So it was actually kind of fun to see them together again. So I thought that was great. Next thing you gotta talk about here is Gore the God Butcher. Of course, Christian Bale, after playing Batman in The Dark Knight Rises, he finally comes back to play a villain in the Marvel Universe, and I thought that this was a pretty cool little thing. I just thought that, obviously, I just thought that the way Christian Bale played him, he played it really well. As it just says that his daughter, and he tries to get help from the gods, but the gods are not what they seem to be, and so he has this belief that maybe gods are all bad, and when he wishes for his daughter back, but then he dies, and then he has Thor adopt his own daughter. It's kind of weird, but at the same time, I kind of understand where you're coming from. But yeah, so I thought what they did with him was actually pretty good, and the performance was actually pretty solid. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then I guess the other thing you gotta talk about with this film is really the action sequences. All the action was pretty cool. Of course, the Shadow Realm fight was awesome. The fight in Olympian City was awesome. It was kind of weird as every time they kept hitting the Olympian soldiers, like there was like yellow blood spurting out of them, and it's like I kept seeing the trailers like, what is all that yellow stuff on them? And I'm like, oh, it's Olympian blood. So that was kind of weird. And then overall, so yeah, that's pretty much all the good on this film. Let's move on to the bad, because there's a pretty much a couple of bad things to talk about with this film. And I guess some of the problems with this film is that, once again, the comedy, there's parts of it that work, but then there's parts of it that just do not work. And I think the first thing you gotta talk about with the comedy is the stuff they use with the hammers. As we're seeing Thor reunite with his ex-girlfriend, as she is Thor, they somehow give the hammers personalities. Like, whenever Thor's trying to get Mjolnir back to him, Stormbreaker just happens to slide in as a little joke. And it's like, it's funny, but it's like, this feels like you're just watching a cartoon for some reason. Like, this doesn't seem like something that should happen. Like, it's funny. I get it. It's funny. But that's not something realistic. If something like this was happening, like, it honestly, it wouldn't be happening in realistic form. So that was kind of weird. And like, there's literally multiple scenes where Thor's like talking to Stormbreaker, like, "Are we good?" Like, he literally pours beer on him on the hammer, like he's talking to him. Or even like when Stormbreaker doesn't do the right Bifrost thing, he's like, "Stormbreaker, what are you doing?" Or even when he's trying to stop the Stormbreaker from doing the portal, he's like, "Stormbreaker, what are you doing? This isn't you. You need to stop this." Like it's an actual person. Like, it's an actual person. Like, what the heck? That's all done by Taika Waititi. I think the other thing you gotta talk about with this film is that there are certain stuff, and if you know, this is like one of the shortest MCU films. It's like an hour and 59 minutes long. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that oh, and I forgot to mention on the good, the soundtrack is great with Guns N' Roses songs. I love it. There's just a lot of plot lines in here that just were not well explored. Whether it's the stuff with Valkyrie, or even the stuff with Korg. I wanted to see more of them. It's like, it was kind of disappointing that we didn't get to see them in the third act, as the third act revolved around Thor, Lady Thor, and the kids, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And it's like, I wanted to see more of them. Oh, and by the way, once again, Jane Foster and Valkyrie have great chemistry. I like the little sisterhood. So I also wish I could have seen more of them, because it was actually pretty cool. Next thing you gotta talk about here is really just the stuff that just does not make any sense to the continuity of the entire MCU. Like, the first thing and this goes back to the stuff with Jane gaining the powers of Thor, as the way she does it is she looks in a book, sees that the hammer can access health because she has cancer. So she goes to the new Asgard, and they're showing a flashback of Jane and Thor's relationship, and Thor is talking to his hammer, being like, "Promise me you'll always protect her, even if it's broken." And it's like, it makes sense into why he couldn't use Mjolnir in Infinity War and Endgame, because he meant it for her, even if it was destroyed. It makes sense. But at the same time, it's also kind of weird, because he could have brought Infinity War, because it could have been useful. But at the same time, it makes sense, but then it doesn't. So that's kind of confusing for me. And then also the scene where basically Thor has the Thunderbolt of Zeus, and basically grants the kids the powers of Thor. And this was a cool plot line. I thought it was pretty well executed. It was kind of cool that you got the kids basically getting a weapon and basically fighting all these dark monsters with it. It was cool. Was it something that I wanted to see? Probably not. Because and everybody kept saying like, you could have used this in all the other films that Thor appeared in, but it's like that's the thing. The other characters didn't need the power of Thor to win, because all the other characters that he was surrounded by were superheroes. They were super people, so they didn't need it. They needed it because he didn't have any help. Because Jane Foster, she was out, because she had to rest for cancer. Valkyrie was injured. Korg was just a head. Sif had just an arm, and she was also injured. And then, of course, the Guardians just went on their own. And then that leads to my other problems with the film. And the deaths in here, that also leads into my other stuff with the comedy. And that the deaths in here, the fake deaths, with Gore literally not killing, but stabbing Valkyrie in the chest, or at least in the stomach. And she's literally fine. She's just injured a little bit. Like, she's completely fine. Like, to be honest with you, I feel like you could have died. You could have died. Like, or even Zeus literally throws the Thunderbolt at Korg. He crumbles into pieces, but he's alive with his head. Like, it's emotional when he crumbles, but then it's kind of weird when he just goes back as the body. Like, it's not the best thing that they're doing. And then even with Lady Sif, it was kind of, I guess you could say I chuckled a little bit when she was like, maybe your arm is in Valhalla. That joke was funny, but like you try to make it an emotional moment and especially since you're doing this by bringing Sif back since we saw her in Thor: The Dark World. Like, everybody keeps thinking that we saw her in Ragnarok. She wasn't there. The last time we really saw her was in Loki when she was doing that time, but that was a time loop version. The last time we saw her was in Thor: The Dark World, and you do it by making a joke that her cut off arm is in Valhalla. That's kind of a waste of bringing a character like Sif back when she wasn't even one of the best characters at all. And then that brings me into my next two problems, and let's talk about Zeus. And when they first announced that Zeus was going to be in here, I was thinking it was going to be like Melissa McCarthy. I said Marissa Tomei. We're not talking about Annie. We're talking about Melissa McCarthy. Melissa McCarthy as Hela and all this other stuff. But that's not what it is. Because it's like, when you're thinking of Olympus, you think of Hercules, Zeus, Ares. For me, I wasn't thinking of all that potential because I didn't really think you could introduce the other gods in this film. But they actually went and did it, and Zeus was not exactly the best thing. Like, he literally was just like a bad person, like we do not care what happens in Asgard. Asgard's problems are Asgard's problems. Olympus problems are Olympus problems. And then he kept talking, he goes to, like, this is the second time that a Thor movie has ever mentioned, like, orgies. He's like, if you talk again, you will not be invited, you will be uninvited to the orgy. And then he talks again, he's like, you were uninvited to the orgy. Like, bro, why are you mentioning this in a PG-13 movie? Why are you mentioning orgies in a movie like this? Like, bro. And then, even then, like, it's like, he was so rude to Thor. It's like, it was so, I was honestly mad at him. Like, why can't you help him? Like, you're not giving him a reasonable thing. Like, you're just giving us more of that other stuff. And then even when Thor stabs the Thunderbolt through him, it's like you thought he was dead, but he's actually still alive. It's like, it's such a waste of stuff. Though there is an end credit scene that we'll talk about in just a little bit when we get onto my theories. But Zeus was just a waste. And even the Olympus stuff I wasn't interested in. So maybe when they do the little plotline in the end credit scene, I'm hoping that it at least is good. But we'll talk about that later. And then the last thing to talk about on the bad here is the bad usage of Guardians of the Galaxy, because they used it a lot in the trailers. Like, they promoted, they did, like, if you see all the trailers, the Guardians of the Galaxy are promoted throughout all of them, and they're not even in the movie. Almost all the trailers, that's all you see of them. It's like, I get it, but it's like, why are you showing us, like, bro? And here's the thing, because it's like, at the end of Endgame, they set up a plot line where Thor was going to be was going to be the new king with was that she set up that Valkyrie was going to be the new king of Asgard, and Thor was going to go on to be a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. But then this whole thing happens, and then the Guardians just get sent off because this is God problems. This is Asgardian God problems. And then he doesn't even go back to the Guardians of the Galaxy. And honestly, I heard a lot of things that this might have to do with the stuff that happened with James Gunn getting fired from Disney. As if you know, the last thing that we got from the MCU after this happened pretty much during the time when, like, if you remember, James Gunn got fired after Spider-Man Far From Home got released. It was a year since we got another MCU thing with WandaVision. And so, I guess it makes sense, but it's like, you wasted such a potential plot line that, and even that, I don't even think the Guardians were going to be even important in the movie. It was nice to see them. The little interactions with him and Star-Lord were cool. But at the same time, it was not that great. And, yeah, so the usage of the Guardians were not that great. Though I am excited to see Guardians 3, which I'm excited to see that. And honestly, like, I was thinking that because they were going to be in the movie, I didn't think they were going to play a big part. But I thought they were going to be playing, like, the way they did with Doctor Strange in Spider-Man No Way Home. Where he was going to be in there for a little bit, but he wasn't going to be the biggest part of the film. That's kind of how I thought they were. And that's just not what they are. They're just in the first half of the movie. And they're not even part of the story, really. So that's pretty much my thoughts on Thor: Love and Thunder. Let me know what you guys thought down below in the comment section below. Did you guys love it? Did you guys hate it? What do you write there in between? Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comment section below. With that said, let's get all my scores. Alright, so that's it for my scores, but we have one more thing to do before we end this video, and that's to talk about, well, actually a couple more things to do before we end this video, and that's to talk about some theories I have for this movie and really the remaining projects that we have. So to start off with the stuff that's already been established for the future, let's talk about some of the end credit scenes. So, the end credit scene, the first one is basically at the credits, at the end of the cast credits, where basically Zeus is talking to someone where it's like, they don't ask us for lightning, they don't ask us for rain, they just want to see our superheroes. And then he starts to assign someone on a mission to kill Thor Odinson, and that's the introduction. We get Roy Kent as Hercules, and I'm just excited. I'm excited to see Hercules in the MCU. Personally, if I would have to choose my actor to play Hercules, I would have chose The Rock. I don't know why. It's just because Hercules is meant to be the strongest character in the Marvel Universe. Like, the strongest one. Not the most powerful, but the strongest one. And The Rock seems to be kind of like that, even though he's playing Black Adam. And I'm not saying this just because he played Hercules in the 2014 film, but I'm saying that because I think he fits it right. But hey, this is like the first appearance of Hercules, so we'll see what happens with Roy Kent. I'm excited to see what they do with him. And then we get to the other end credit scene we get to see Jane come in Valhalla. And what was interesting about this is that throughout the entire film, they kept mentioning Valhalla. You're gonna have a satisfying, and if you die, then you're gonna have a satisfying death in Valhalla. Your arm's probably in Valhalla. Like, they keep mentioning Valhalla throughout the entire thing, and I'm like, bro, this obviously is leading somewhere. So they cut to a scene where she enters Valhalla, and you get to see Idris Elba as Heimdall again. And what was interesting about that is you never thought you would actually see Heimdall again, because he died off in Infinity War when Thanos killed him. And it's like, it was so cool to actually see him a little bit again. So I thought that was really cool. It was a nice little heartwarming scene to see them again. And when also, I forgot to mention, like, I actually didn't know Heimdall had kids, or had a wife. So that was actually pretty cool. Axel, or Adrius, or whatever his name is. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. And then I think the other stuff with the theory and, Thor getting a daughter, adopting Gor's daughter, and what they're doing with the new Asgard, I honestly have no idea where all that's going. With Thor, it's kind of cool to see her and her daughter, like the fact that it's actually his daughter, not someone else's daughter, doing the Thor stuff. I thought it was pretty cool. I just think that, and I think it is kind of cool that the way he found himself, exactly what he is to get a daughter. It's kind of cool. But, you're raising her to fight at such a young age, even though she has superpowers. It's kind of weird, but it's kind of cool. Overall, I didn't mind it. I'm pretty sure that she's gonna change her name and grow up to be Torin, which is Thor's daughter in the comics, as well as the movie Next Avengers: Heroes of Tomorrow. So, I'm pretty sure they're probably gonna go with that plotline. And instead of using Stormbreaker, they're probably gonna give him a sword. He's probably gonna give her a sword, probably. But yeah, that's pretty much all my theories for this one. And also, with Thor, with Valkyrie and Korg, I actually have no idea where they're going with those characters. I honestly don't know. So that's pretty much all my theories for this movie. Now let's talk about some other things, my thoughts on Phase 4 and an upcoming MCU film. So for me, my thoughts on Phase 4 right now, for the stuff that we've gotten this year, I've actually been kind of disappointed with it. Because, the really good thing that I thought was actually good of all the MCU content this year was really Doctor Strange. That's, my favorite thing that we came out this year. Moon Knight, Miss Marvel were good shows. I mean, we have one more episode of Miss Marvel left, and it's not exactly entirely doing well, but it's good. But, the content we got last year was special because, it's been a year since we got an MCU content. We went a full year without having any MCU content. And the fact that we got 4 movies and 5 TV shows was just incredible. Though sometimes the run times and the length of the episodes and even the number of episodes that we could have gotten more of. But I'm just glad we got MCU content. But with this year, it's there's some stuff that just feels so rushed. There's things that could have been explored more. And I am a little nervous for the future projects. And I guess you could say, with this film, it makes me a little bit nervous for what is to come for the MCU. But at the same time, it's with all these other projects like Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Secret Invasion, She-Hulk, I Am Groot, which probably pointless series, but at least we're getting something in the MCU. At least we can at least have something to talk about. So that's pretty much my overall thoughts on Phase 4. I'm excited for it. I am a little bit excited for future projects. Some of them I am. Most of them not so much, but yeah. And then the final thing we're going to do on here, we're going to talk about the next MCU film, which I'm actually kind of excited for. So now that we finally have Thor: Love and Thunder out, we finally have Doctor Strange out, we're getting to the final film of the year of the MCU with Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. And this is a difficult film to talk about, and because there's things in this movie that they've announced that I am very excited for. On the one hand, you're introducing Namor, the Submariner, basically the Marvel version of Aquaman. I think that's great. And even the special look that we got of him, I thought it looked pretty cool. The new special look for Atuma and the Atlanteans, I think looks pretty cool. The fact that we're actually getting Riri Williams, who was playing Ironheart in the Ironheart series, to play Ironheart in this movie, pretty cool. Seeing more of Wakanda, especially after Endgame, pretty cool. And even seeing who's going to be the next Black Panther and stuff, kind of cool. However, ever since the death of Chadwick Boseman, it's been kind of weird, and I have weird feelings about this film. The things that they've announced are exciting to me, but at the same time, it's every time I think about who is going to be the next Black Panther, who is going to be this and who's going to be that, I just can't think of anything excitingly happen, because how can you possibly do another Black Panther film without Chadwick Boseman? I feel like you're disrespecting his legacy in a way. But at the same time, you know, it's an MCU film. It's Black Panther. I love the first film, so I'm probably gonna love this one even more. But who knows? That's just what I'm thinking. So let me know. That's pretty much it I have for this video. Thank you guys for sticking through this long review. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. All my social media stuff is in the about section over there. Oh, and also follow me on Letterboxd at Marvel_6_. Basically the same name as my Instagram from about a couple months ago. But yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.